Well, hello and welcome to the Midday Show for this rather spooky seasonal Halloween special. I do hope you're all okay this lunchtime. Of course, Neil is off to far-flung places. Well, at least I think he is. I mean, for all we know, and given the season, he could have been kidnapped by aliens and abducted somewhere. But I'm sure we'll soon find out. And Russ is on celebrant duty, so he's not with us this lunchtime. But fear not, because we do have a rather spooky special for you. I'm nearly ready for Halloween. I've started getting the decorations ready. I've got my familiar with me, courtesy of my cousin Caitlin. It's very good, actually. Uh, he doesn't need feeding or anything, but he's very good natured. And then I've got an assortment of pumpkins, including this rather funky purple one that I got from Sainsbury's a couple of years ago. Other supermarkets are available, you know. Now, I do hope to have with you this lunchtime a very special guest talking pet spooky. I'm sure we'll find out more with him in due course. But I thought I'd start off with some Halloween stories, some scary stories. So I thought it would be rather nice if you wanted to check in, say hello, tell me what you're doing this lunchtime. Tell me if you're preparing for Halloween or whether you can't abide it at all. You're fed up of all the fireworks. Now, where I live, just on the outskirts of London, in North Surrey, there's already been complaints, I have to say. I've noticed on Nextdoor, which is sort of a neighbourhood social media platform, there are people complaining about all sorts of things. And, you know, you think, well, it was Diwali last week, so there's been quite a lot of fireworks and things like that. And also it's Halloween coming up, so there's been various things going on with that. It's going to be bonfire night next week, so understandably there'll be more fireworks again. There'll be trick-or-treaters this Friday because it's Halloween itself. Although, do you know what, there's a theory that Halloween should become a season. I mean, it technically is a season anyway. But one of my cousins brought back from America at the end of August a load of Halloween paraphernalia for me, which was great. I've got a glow-in-the-dark necklace. I've got a ghost necklace that lights up and things like this, all these different things. And this was in August. In American shops, they make a whole massive thing of it. It's catching on a bit here. I'm not entirely sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But, you know, well, I'll go with it. I like Halloween. I much prefer Halloween to Christmas, right? You know, okay, it's all a bit commercial. But actually, Halloween comes from the pagan festival of Samhain. And it's a pagan festival, as I say. It's looking across traditions. It's to do with Roman traditions as well. It's the day in the year, it is said, Halloween, where the gap between our world and the spirit world has blurred, and it makes it easier for the spirits and the dead to return. Now, depending on what you believe, I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel my mum's spirit is around all the time, as well as various other family members, which is comforting. A little bit worrying at times, you know, but on the whole, I like it. Apart from when I can hear my mum shouting at the evening news when some politician or another has made stupid decisions. But we won't go into that now because this is about Halloween. So let's do some hellos. Hello to Philip Harling. Thank you for joining me this lunchtime. And hello to RVB, Robert Van Buren. I would like to say commiserations, and I'm sorry, but I'm not really. You see, our team beat his team at the weekend, so there we go. A very ardent Crystal Palace fan, which is not a bad thing. It's better than being a Tottenham fan. That's what I say. But I want to know if you've got any spooky stories for Halloween, first of all. As I say, I'm hoping to have a guest come on in a few minutes' time, around about 15:15, to talk about spooky pets and Halloween and that sort of thing. But I will. I've upset Robert now. He's holding his head in his hand. Do you know what? To be fair, Crystal Palace are doing quite well. It's just you came up against the Arsenal, so what can I say? All it takes is 1-0, doesn't it? I've got a spooky story for you to start things off. When I was about 7 years old, Mum, who knows all sorts of people from all walks of life, herself being a journalist and a politico, and she did sort of various entertainment projects as well throughout her life. And we were invited on one occasion to Harden Castle, which is in North Wales. It's quite near Chester, but on the Welsh borders in North Wales. And it was because Mum knew the people who were the housekeepers. So they said, why don't you come and stay for the weekend? Went, oh, that'd be really good. That'd be very nice. And they warned us. They said, it's the ancestral home of the Gladstone family. So, right, okay, fine. He of William Gladstone fame, famous British Prime Minister about 300 years ago. So we were invited there, and it was very interesting. They said, these will be your rooms, just so you know, it is haunted. And Mum and I were quite nonplussed about this. I know some people equally would be sort of scoffing and in complete horror at either ends of the spectrum, but it was like, no, okay, fair enough. We had that kind of spirituality, so that's fine. And they said, as you go around, you may feel or see what you pick up, because Mum had sort of said, well, our family are quite spiritual and this sort of thing. And she was showing us around, the lady housekeeper, and she said, and this is William Gladstone's study, and it hasn't been changed since he died. So nothing's been touched. It's been left as it is. And you could see, actually, the desk was there. He'd obviously had something that he was reading. It was a vast library as well, very interesting tombs. That's TOMB, not tombs as in of the burial kind, tombs as in tombs of actually it is spelt the same, isn't it? I don't know why I went down that route, but book tombs, big interesting books, and very interesting and intellectual books. And so we started looking around the room. Mum noticed quite an interesting book in one of the shelves, and she went to take it off the shelf, and all of a sudden there was hands on her shoulders, as if to say, be careful. Just be careful. And she did look at the book. She took it out. She looked at it. She put it back again. And immediately she felt that the hands were lifted from her shoulders. She thought, okay, fine. Somebody's obviously saying to be careful and things. And she mentioned this to the housekeeper, the lady. And, oh, yes, that's William. Yes, he was just keeping an eye on you to make sure you're careful with his books. So, okay, fine, fair enough. Well, you're on the nursery floor, they told us. You're in this bedroom, and they showed us into a very nice, ornate room. There were big, cosy beds in there, lots of grand pictures on the wall and things like that, very heavy drapes on the windows and stuff. So we settled in quite nicely. They did say that you might hear something in the night. Don't worry too much about it. Well, we woke up in the night, and we heard footsteps at the end of the corridor. I was like, oh, what's that? And Mum said, oh, it's somebody walking around, We looked out into the corridor, and although we could tell the footsteps were coming from the corridor, there was absolutely nothing in this corridor, nothing at all. So nothing going on in the corridor, nothing there, nothing, to see or anything like that. But still, we could hear these footsteps. There was definitely something going up and down that corridor in the night. And then Mum, out of nowhere, said, oh, I need the loo. So I was just like, okay, the bathroom's across the corridor. That's fine. And she ruminated on it for a woman who's like, quite spiritual and into her faith, and we have our faith. She was very hesitant about going 3 feet across the corridor in order to use the bathroom in the middle of the night. These footsteps continued. She did eventually go. Obviously, nature called. I have never seen anybody run so fast in all my life. She could have given Usain Bolt a run for his money. It was very fast across the corridor. Of course, nothing happened, and it was fine. And then she came back into the bedroom a little more slowly, but there were still these footsteps going on. And she did a sort of hello as she came back into the room. And actually, the footsteps seemed to stop after that. So perhaps whoever it was in the corridor just wanted to be acknowledged and say hello. So that was one event during our stay at Harden Castle. Another thing, the next day, and we continued the tour. There was an old Roman ruin in the grounds. I must say, actually, if you wanted to go and visit, you can't. It's a private property. So we were very fortunate that we did know through a friend of a friend, the housekeepers there who looked after it still. But they showed us into some of the other rooms, and they showed us into a room that was obviously a playroom. And it was quite near the study. And there was a doll's house there, and it was a beautiful, big, grand doll's house. Looked very nice and everything. And of course, me, I'm 7. I was like, oh, I've never had such a grand doll's house like that, you know. I had some Cindy's and Barbies, but they didn't have a house to live in, you know. Anyway, so I'm looking at these little figurines and the furniture, and I started to very carefully took them out. And they said, you know, you can play with them if you like, just be very careful. So I took them out very gingerly. I played with them for a bit. I looked at everything, and I set it all down. And then I think I needed the loo or something, or I had to go for lunch and went off for a bit. When I came back about 10 minutes later, everything had been put back. And I thought, oh, well, perhaps the cleaner's been and tidied up, or perhaps the housekeeper saw it and tidied it up. And so I went off again, found Mum, found the housekeepers, and I said, oh, I did play with the doll's house, and it was so nice, and I was very careful. And then I went to the loo, and I came back, it had all been put away. And she said, well, nobody's been in that room. You know, we sort of left you to it. And I said, oh, is there not a cleaner or something? No, she's upstairs. She hasn't been near there so far this morning. So, yes, very interesting ghosts I had floating around at Harden Castle. And I wasn't afraid of them, interestingly. I don't think spirits and ghosts and spooks and whatever you want to call them. I mean, I've got some of them decorating my top today, which was a bargain in Tesco, by the way. So that was good as well. And my hat, that was a present from my dad, so that's all good as well. And I don't think it's anything to be afraid of. I think a lot of the time with spirits and faith, and depending on what you believe, that it's about acknowledgement, you know. Certainly when I've felt a presence or anything, or when my mum used to tell me she saw things in walls, which when I was younger, I thought, well, that's very odd. Why would people be hiding in walls? I didn't quite get the concept of, you know, spirits are not a solid entity, that actually they can be wherever you like and however you like. And it's the kineticism, I suppose, for want of a scientific explanation. And again, even if you don't believe in that sort of thing, it's, to my mind, and this is how I explained it to a friend of mine's mum after her husband died, that so long as you've got lots of memories of that person who's passed away, they're still in your heart. So they're still alive because you remember all the wonderful things that you did while they were alive, while they had a physical presence on the earth. But it's very much a personal thing. As I say, that's my ghost story for today. It's not very spooky. I do hear of and have read of things where, you know, you get sort of poltergeist type characters who throw things and disrupt things, but I don't feel that ghosts necessarily, spirits necessarily, need to do that at all. I think it's just an acknowledgement, and you know, I very much do that with my mum. In fact, I tease her when she was alive. We always talked about a parking angel. Well, since she's passed away, and I then roaming around for parking spaces, particularly if I think that, you know, I'm going somewhere where she would like to go as well, I say to her, right, Mum, come on, do your parking angel thing, find me a space. And do you know what? 9 times out of 10, I do. On one occasion, I parked right outside a restaurant, and everyone else was driving around for ages. So, well, how the hell did you get that parking space? I was like, parking angel. My mum helped me. So there you go. It might be the season of the sticks. Please don't play that song. I'm so sick of it. And it's about COVID and flying, which I'm not interested in either. But yes, we can all enjoy ourselves. I must say that actually, I will say hello to Barry, who is listening, who has joined us, Barry J. Allen. He said, that's very true. I think you may be referring to what I said about spirits, and they're not all sort of disruptive and bad. They just want acknowledgement. Now, Philip Harling has come up with a story. He was staying at a friend's flat in Chiswick, and one evening his host went out, left me looking after their 10-year-old. Oh, God. After about an hour, he'd gone to bed and was fast asleep. I heard a scratching at the lounge door. They had a cat. I opened it to let him in. No cat was there. About 15 minutes later, another scratch. The cat was still in the room. I crept up to the door, scratching still. Let's see what else he said here. Scratching still. The story has ended I'll talk about a teaser for a Halloween. It stopped after the happening I crept up to the door, scratching still happening, opened it, quite... Philip, you'll have to write another message to tell us what the rest of it says. I feel like we're in a soap opera now, a slightly spooky one. I want to know what happened, and actually, how did the cat react to it? That's very interesting, because my cat, the late great Thomas the cat, he was very nonplussed about things. Fireworks, loud noises. In fact, he'd tell me about it. He had a thing. He knew that the bin lorry always turned up about 7:30 on a Wednesday morning. And about 7:29, if I wasn't already up, he'd jump on the bed, like a nanosecond before it came down the road, just in case I hadn't put the bin out. It was very helpful, so that was quite useful. I'm still waiting for the rest of Philip's story. It may have to wait a moment, because I can see that my guest is in the green room, as it were. It's rather grand. Tom Rainbow, I hope you've helped yourself to the virtual snacks. And you're sitting comfortably. I'm getting a nod, so that's good. I have to say, I'm hoping to have a Halloween party, and I always make spooky snacks. So you have things like witches' fingers, which is actually cheese fingers, cheese twists, that sort of thing. I make them myself, and then popcorn becomes ghost snot, and you get the idea. But let me bring in my guest. I'd like to welcome Tom Rainbow from Blue Cross. Hello, Tom. Good to talk to you. Good to see you as well.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. I'm on the edge of my seat for Philip's story.
It's not a terribly good start.
Oh.
Let's have a check on the technology. No, it says you're not. It might be your microphone settings, cool. Tom. I'll just take you off for a moment to see if you can check whether your microphone is working. It could be, of course, the spooks playing up about it. Let me tell you a bit about Tom while we're just waiting to check on the microphone settings. Tom is from Blue Cross, and she says, just getting her notes out. We're talking about pets at Halloween. We are talking about how you can look after your pet, whether the pet might react to spooky happenings in your house and things like that. And let's try and get Tom back on again.
Is that working?
I still can't hear you. We can see your mouth moving, so I know you're saying something. Yeah, no, we still can't hear you.
Okay, that is strange.
I'm just going to check the settings this end. Seems to be okay this end. I don't know why we can't hear you, Tom.
Okay, that's
maybe you can check your sound settings your end. While he's doing that, let's just finish off Philip's story about his friend babysitting his 10-year-old friend's son. No cat at the door. A cat, you said, I think, was already in the room. And you mentioned it to your friends. You said, so you met Charlie then, our spirit cat. Been around for about 2 years and no bother. Well, no wonder the other cat didn't react at all. Because it's obviously quite friendly. I love that, the fact that you've got a spirit cat as well as the actual cat. That's really lovely. Tell us your ghost stories, by the way, in this spooky special. Speaking of which, it seems to be playing havoc with Tom's sound. He's trying to see if he can get his sound sorted. Otherwise, it's going to be a very quiet interview. Let's just check here. And I shall tell you about Tom while he's just sort of... Let's check the... How are you getting on, Tom? Can we hear you?
Any luck? No? Okay.
No, we still can't hear you.
Okay, let me leave.
I would say go into the sound settings with this, and whatever it's set to, try something different.
Yeah.
Particularly if you've just swapped from headphones to the main microphone on the computer and vice versa. I'll just let you have a look at that again for the moment, while I tell you a bit about Blue Cross. Here we go. So the thing about Blue Cross is they're obviously a very good pet charity, animal charity, and they have a survey out that says 2/3 of UK pet owners say their animals have shown strange behaviour. Now this is interesting. Philip is saying he could hear Tom, and I couldn't hear him, so that makes it even stranger. Could you hear him clearly? Could you hear him loudly? That's quite interesting that you can hear him and I can't. Bear with me a second. Let's double check this. He's disappeared again for the moment, so we shall see what's going on when he pops back again. And obviously, you can hear me. I can see that you can hear me, but bizarrely, we can't hear Tom. Or hopefully, he should pop back momentarily, and everyone will be able to hear him. Thank you, Philip, for confirming that. Let me talk to you about Blue Cross. They got this survey that say 2/3 of UK pet owners say their animals have shown strange behaviour around Halloween, which is sort of a nice tie-in to your spooky story, Philip, about the cat and the spirit cat. Almost 1/3 of owners say scares their pets are terrified of things like fireworks, with many shaking, running, or hiding when the bangs begin. And some people blame the supernatural, some blame the fireworks, as I say. Dogs are barking or growling at nothing. That's nearly 1/3 of people say that about their pets. About 1/4 say that their pets hide under beds or freeze in place or stare at nothing, empty spaces, that sort of thing. Now, Thomas used to do that, my late great cat. And we always thought he was chatting to my grandmother, because it would depend what he was staring at. Sometimes he would just stare and he'd be quite calm. Other times he'd stare and he'd start chatting. And Thomas was a chatterbox anyway. So it was very much sort of, and you think, oh, who's he talking about now? Now, Tom, the good news is I'm going to add you to the stage. Now we can. This is interesting. Everyone else can hear you apart from me.
Oh, right.
So
Hi, everyone.
that's very interesting. Let me see if this makes any difference. Because you're chatting. We can see that you're chatting, but for some reason I can't hear you, which is not terribly good at all. Let me check my sound settings. Talk amongst yourselves. Actually, Tom, seeing as everyone else can hear you, why don't you start by telling people what I just started to say about the Blue Cross survey around pets and Halloween? And I shall hopefully be able to hear you by the end of it.
Yes, of course. So we surveyed the general public to see how they felt their animals reacted and responded during this season, and 66% of those people thought that their pet had experienced something or were displaying spooky behaviours around this time of year. So a clear sort of displacement in the way they behave on a day-to-day basis. And I think it was 19% of those thought that their pet could detect paranormal activity, which I thought was such an interesting observation that we're able to make about our pets just during this sort of time of year where everything is a little bit different to how it would be
And of course,
on a
if you'd
day-to-day
like
basis.
to ask Tom any questions, I'm conscious that I might be interrupting you.
No, that's fine. Yeah, if there are any
please
questions,
do ask
then
him some questions.
yeah, let me know.
It is rather bizarre that you can hear me and that you can hear Tom, but we can't hear each other. Or
Yeah.
Tom can hear me and I can't hear him. What I would like to ask you actually is whether you have any pets yourselves, and please tell everybody, and certainly those who are tuned in and listening and watching this afternoon. We've heard about Philip and his friend Kat, but whether anyone else has any pets and whether you've got any questions for Tom as well. And Tom, tell us about your pets or give us some examples of some specific spooky experiences.
Yeah, of course. So I have a very lovely border collie called Poe. If you hear him in the background, I do apologise. He's often out up and about whenever I'm on calls or I'm talking to someone. And I'm in a really fortunate position that he isn't one of those pets, a bit like Liz was saying about her cat, who finds Halloween the most distressing, but I do see subtle changes in his ability to settle in the evening when there is lots of activity going on outside of the house. And so we'll have been out for a nice long walk. We'll have, really invested that time in sort of wearing him out. His border collie, so he goes, he's got a lot of energy, and where he would normally sleep the majority of the evening, I definitely see extra vigilance for noises and smells that might be happening outside the house during Halloween with the extra activity, the trick-or-treaters going around. So we sort of always remain readily stocked on chews and stuffed kongs. I might take sort of his daily allowance of food and put it in a kong and freeze it so that I can give him something to occupy him during that time. So his attention's not as strong on anticipating the doorbell or noises. I've had a lot of behaviour cases, because I've worked as a behaviourist at the Blue Cross, where we have had pets who really find this time of year, this sort of Halloween period moving into bonfire night, really distressing. And I remember a cockapoo a couple of years ago now, who was a 3 years old adult cockapoo who would pace and whine and would dribble as well as the result of sort of having lots of extra activity outside of the house. And we spoke through advice on how to ease some of the stress that he was experiencing. And we like sort of the tips I gave there about giving him sort of chews and preparing kongs ahead of time. We created a nice safe space with his favourite bed that was sort of away from the front door where the majority of the activity was happening, and we set up a few stair gates to allow him the ability to retreat and have some separation from the sort of the space in the home that was experiencing the most activity of the trick-or-treaters going past. And we set up this really cool this cardboard box filled with lots of recycling, and we sprinkled lots of his favourite treats into it, and would encourage him to use his nose and sniff around and forage in this space. And the owner's really great. They did a lot of work on the lead up to Halloween, lots of preparation. So he was using this cardboard box and ruffling through it, and he was they'd pull out the cupboard and his emotional state would rise.
Now, the good news is that I can hear you through a very
there we go.
Fashion. So that's always good as well. I love this story of the cockapoo. It's interesting, really, because my sister and sister-in-law's parents, they have a cockapoo.
Yeah.
They have a cockapoo, and the cockapoo seems to be fearless. He doesn't seem to be frightened of anything. So is it certain breeds of dog? This particular cockapoo was just particularly frightened, or
Yeah, I think the mammalian brain is really complex, isn't it? And how much the breed of the dog influences sort of their sensitivity to loud noises or new environments is all a bit varied, and lots of it is based on their experiences leading up to the point. How did nature nurture interaction in terms of breeds, and it's a lot of the time about the individual. And it sounds like your cockapoo is the confident and bold character, and this one less so. And it's a real variety, even in individuals of the same breed. So I have a border collie who's really comfortable at this time of year, but I've definitely worked with others who are not so much. So yeah, it's a real variety sprinkled in there.
And what about there'll certainly be pets who react in different ways, as you mentioned in the study. Tell us a little bit about that. Ones that, as I say, I talked about Thomas, my cat, who would react to things, not necessarily being scared, but just be. It's like our pets have a sixth sense.
Yeah, they really do, don't they? It's so interesting, the sort of range of things we observe in our pets, and there is such a strong connection that we have as owners with our pets that we share our lives with, and so much of that social sort of connection we have with them does mean that we are really in tune. I think there's a lot about the way that dogs, cats, and the other pets that we may own perceive the world and experience it through their sense of smell and sense of hearing that we still actually don't know a whole lot about, and we're still going through the process of sort of studying, and each year we learn a little bit more. So it's really quite there's really quite a lot, and I just find that super fascinating that we have such an unknown in that area.
And what advice would you give to people? I know you started to mention about doing things like gates for the cockapoo, but what other advice do you have for people who are worried about their pets? Because this is the season, it's not just spooky
Yeah.
season. We've had fireworks going on for the last week or so because of Diwali, and then next week is firework night anyway. Any excuse to have fireworks, really, but trick or treaters as well. How do we try and reassure our pets that might be a bit nervous or a bit concerned?
Yeah, it's such a good question. So, as I was mentioning before, sort of providing them an activity that can offset some of the worry that they might be experiencing is a really nice way of doing it. Sort of creating some separation from the front door, or whatever, however your house is set up, where you would have the most amount of activity, especially during Halloween period. Offer them safe spaces where they can retreat to, put their bed in a location that they're really comfortable with, and sort of allow them the opportunity to do that. Try not to force them or coax them into experiencing the trick or treaters, or try to expose them in sort of hope that that would um, ease them. I think often allowing them to create distance and to come away from the thing that is worrying is of the biggest help there. If your dog is or cat or is really benefits from sort of being stroked or having sort of that physical interaction from you, then that offer that as well. But it's about sort of trying to maintain like a nice calm familiar environment that sort of would be consistent with day-to-day activity, for as much as what's happening outside of the house is very novel and very startling. You can just have like TV and radio on, draw the curtains. These all help sort of dull some of the sensory experience of what might be going on outside, especially with fireworks, where there's going to be lots of bangs and the doorbell's going off frequently, so there's lots of startling um, noise. Yeah, the comment about sort of classic FM playing calming music is a great option. Oh, I can't hear Liz. So We can't hear you, Liz. Whilst Liz is dealing with that, I'll okay. I think I just got word to carry on whilst we're dealing with this. So drawing the curtains, playing the radio, classical FM. Yeah, they play good music over sort of this period that can help dull some of the sort of extreme noises that might be going on outside. If you do have a pet who is really worried of the trick or treaters and you're concerned about sort of the increased activity, then you can always put a note on your front door to ask trick or treaters to not use the doorbell and maybe use an alternate method for knocking on the door, or totally eliminating them. Doing that, you can leave a basket of sweets outside your front door so that they can still have access to it, but without needing to knock on the door. And then if you're a cat owner as well, so being around this time of year, there's going to be a lot of pumpkins out with candles in it and lots of different types of decoration, so that if ingested could cause some harm. So if you're putting out decorations, thinking about sort of a type that your cat can behave safely around. If you've got, instead of lit candles, using the battery powered candles that don't give off a live flame, and making sure they're sort of outside of the accessible area a cat might be at, sort of at floor level or onto low surfaces they might jump up onto as well. And with cats in particular, they are often going to be wanting to search for areas of safety, so allowing them to sort of pace and meow and locate an area they find most sort of comfortable and secure during the evening. But if you are experiencing some quite extreme behaviours from your pets, or you're really looking for additional advice, I'd actually recommend reaching out to a behaviourist or your vet sort of as soon as possible now in the run up to Halloween and fireworks night, and work sort of on a more one-to-one basis with someone who might be able to give you some intervention in the meantime. So we, at the centre, we have, well, across sort of Blue Cross as a charity, we have one of the last checked is around 130 cats that are up for rehoming at the moment, and sort of our average length of stay for a pet in Blue Cross care is about 30 days, although we do rehome cats in shorter periods of time, but there's a real variety. And I think we often get a lot of questions around whether black cats are often the ones that are the slowest to rehome on the website, but actually we see that all colours of cat get rehomed at sort of quite an even rate, and then it doesn't seem to be quite so much distinction between the colours. With dogs, we sort of sit around between 40 and 50 that are on the website up for adoption at any one time, and their length of stay is just a little bit longer. It often pushes up to that 2-month period, but again, there's a real variety in there at the moment. And currently, sort of since in the last year or so, we've seen a real increase in pregnant and already sort of mums who are already given birth cats that come into our care. So we've had a real increase in sort of the amount of lists of kittens that we're seeing coming through to our centres as well. And so, you know, lots of pets in waiting for their sort of forever home with us. So yeah, the black cat thing is really interesting, especially for this time of year. So I would say, on average, we don't necessarily see a significant difference in whether black cats take longer than cats of other colour, which is really fortunate. I think there's a big sort of demographic of people who are really drawn to the all black cats, especially with sort of their connotations around them within myth and stuff. So we're really fortunate that's people aren't looking away from them in terms of our rehoming figures and getting them placed with their forever homes. Not sure where Liz has gone. Yeah, so the process for adoption at the Blue Cross is hopefully it's free. So if you go onto the website, you will see all of the pets that are currently up and available for adoption, and you'll be able to apply through a link on their profile that will get you to fill out a form that gives us a good idea of sort of the home that you have to offer that individual pet, and so that we can match accordingly. And then once once we are matching them, a member of the team will contact that individual to talk about next steps when it comes to rehoming, and then they'll book in a date to come and meet that pet on the ground. So yeah, if anyone has got any interest in adopting or fostering through the Blue Cross, or would like some additional advice or information on how to best manage their pet and make this time of year as stress-free as possible, then I'd recommend going over to the Blue Cross website, and there'll be lots of detailed information that can be found on there.
I think you might be able to hear me again, although I still can't hear you. So clearly there's a spook in the system. But thank you very much for answering the questions that sort of had to do piecemeal to put up. I do think it's quite interesting that there's always a need for adopted people to adopt and foster and that sort of thing. I know quite a few people who do. What would you be the message to those people? I know we're always being told to make sure a cat is neutered and microchipped and that sort of thing. What sort of advice do you have?
Yeah, so I think anyone that has adopted or is looking to adopt in the near future, then yeah, there are lots of laws around pet ownership that dictate sort of, as you say, microchipping. If you are looking to get your pet neutered, then to talk to your vet about that, and that there are lots of pets that are sort of in need of their forever home, and we extend a foster network. So I really encourage anyone to look at the website for details on how they can apply to be a foster carer if that's something they're really interested in. It goes a long way towards supporting us rehome and support many pets in the future.
And what sort of tests do you do to see if a property or a home is suitable? You know, cats and dogs, like people, have different personalities, and they might be more adept at certain households than not.
Yeah, so we go through an assessment process with the pets that we have in our care that helps inform us about who they are and what life they've experienced before and how they best adapt to a new environment. And part of our rehoming process is that new adopters will fill out a form that gives us really clear details about how the home is set up, what that home might offer, and how it helps us match that to the individual we have in our care. And so past that point, it's about having the conversation with the new adopter or potential adopter about that. We try to remain as non-judgmental and open with our parameters as possible to avoid extra restrictions on rehoming criteria to really enable as many people to be able to have pets as possible. But we always have the pets' needs at the forefront of our minds with that. So it's really tailored to sort of the individual that we have in our care in that respect.
And remind us again about this study for Halloween. It's spooky season. As I say, it's always interesting to hear about our pets' antics and other people's antics. I know that my Facebook feed is full of black cats and dogs doing funny things and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it was a super interesting sort of survey we ran where sort of 66% of people sort of really felt that their pet was behaving in a bit of a spooky way around this time of year, and that 19% of people felt that their pet had experienced some sort of paranormal activity. I think it gives us a really interesting insight into how differently our pets can behave during this time of year, and really, like, there's a lot we don't quite know yet about the way that they perceive and experience the same world that we live in, which I think is just super fascinating, and it opens up a whole multitude of potential reasons for why their behaviour might deviate a little bit during this time.
Do you think they have a sixth sense? Do you think that they maybe got a portal into the spirit world that we need to tap into as well, maybe?
Well, I think that'd be a really interesting theory. I'd love it. This is sort of what I'd love. It'd be great if pets could talk to us, couldn't it? There's so much we miss out on because we're in just purely interpreting the physical behaviour that we see in front of them. But I think, given the fact that their senses are so powerful and so different to how we experience the world, then there could be really quite a lot of explanations for why they are sort of behaving differently.
I was going to say as well, just to give us a bit of a plug, because obviously the Blue Cross does an awful lot for rehoming the pets, the homeless pets, and giving them a good home and stuff. So tell us your website, tell us the details where people can get in touch with you, because we have got people listening all over the UK as well as the world.
Yes. So our website is www.bluecross.org.uk. You will find all of the pets that are available for adoption up on the website with a profile and bio attached to them, and you'll also see the sort of work we're doing in terms of our public campaigns, and we also have lots and lots of information about pet care for all the species that we rehome, and especially for pet care around this time of year, given it's Halloween and soon to be bonfire night. So I'd really encourage people to take a look at that if they need extra advice on how to best set their pets up for success and minimize as much stress and worry during this period as possible.
I love that you said just a moment ago about species. So as well as cats and dogs, what else do you have?
Yes, so cats and dogs, and then we also rehome a lot of the small pet species, so rabbits and chinchillas and hamsters, rats, mice, and a variety of small species, as well as horses as well. So we really have a lot of different species that we rehome through our network, which is really, really cool.
I'm not sure I'd want a rat as a pet. Are they very common? Do they take longer to rehome than black cats, say, or?
They definitely have their own demographic, and people who often are adopting rats are really, really invested. They're super interactive and can offer a really enriching sort of experience of being a pet, if that is something that interests that individual. And they have this sort of they have their own audience in a sense. So if anyone's listening who's interested, then feel free to check out the website.
I know, yeah, they certainly do have a demographic. They seem to take up half of London. There's some statistic that you're never more than 6 foot from a rat in London. I certainly know that coming out the tube station the other day, and there was one crossed my path. They're very brave. And where I live in southwest London, on the southwest London, North Surrey border, there's a lot of brave foxes around. In fact, they sit very blasé in my back garden sometimes until I knock at the window, like, excuse me, you're not paying rent, what are you doing?
Yes, it's all so interesting, isn't it?
Well, we're trying to battle the technology here. I'm sure that a spook has got into the system because I'm sort of doing a combination of lip reading and listening on another device, which has a delay and things like that. But the main thing is the people watching and listening can hear both of us. But Tom, I'd like to thank you so much again for taking part and telling us about our pets, how to look out for them over the coming days and weeks with all the fireworks and trick-or-treaters and things like that. Just one more time, tell us your website and how people can get in touch and do their bit for Blue Cross, which is a marvellous animal charity.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun talking about it. So yeah, our website is www.bluecross.org.uk. And yeah, if you head to the landing page, and there's lots of information about sort of our campaigns and the donation links and the pets that we are rehabbing at the moment.
Excellent. And one more thing from Philip Harling here, who wants to know about a multicoloured male cat known as a rainbow Tom. A bit of a play on words for you there with your name.
That's actually a really clever one. Maybe we can make a marketing campaign about that or something.
Actually, while I think of it, what do you think of Halloween costumes? Because again, it's very much getting into Americanisms over here. But there's a particular cat and his owner called One-Eared Uno that I follow on social media. Yeah. He lives in America, and they're all out for pet costumes. Never mind people costumes. What do we think about that? I know that my cats weren't too keen.
There's a real trend at the moment in people enjoying dressing up their pets, and we never want to judge the choices people make with their animals, but we'd be really open with the potential that what they are doing with as sort of a well-hearted thing is it could be causing a lot of stress. And these costumes are tight and they can be quite restrictive on their gait and their ability to perform natural behavior and do things like grooming or even communicate with each other through body language. And so there could be some sort of unknown distress that could be caused by doing it. So I'd really recommend people to think about that when they're sort of thinking about whether to dress their pet up during Halloween, or maybe just reserve that for their kids or something.
Maybe you should just give them little hats. That would be okay, wouldn't it? Or a harness on it.
Yeah, if you could stick some wings on their harness that they already wear, as opposed to the big costumes. They could be quite restrictive.
Well, thank you again, Tom, very much to you. And thank you for all the work that Blue Cross do for our animals, our furry friends. Have a good Halloween, have a good firework night, and hopefully we shall speak to you again with slightly less technological issues soon. Thank you so much, Tom, for joining us.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Well, there we go. Thank you very much to Tom Rainbow. Thank you for persevering with us. I know that you can hear me and I couldn't hear him. So it looked like it was quite a good conversation. Actually, it's just as well I can lip read slightly and that I have been able to sort of hear what's going on for myself from another device. But that's slightly worrying as well. You don't want to have to rely on those things. You want your own technology to work. I hope that you are having a good Halloween. Philip again is suggesting that if you do encounter ghosts and ghouls, make sure you only get caught by the ghosties. Yes, quite. And we won't finish that sentence. Let me know what you're doing for Halloween. Let me know your ghost stories, as we started off with at the beginning of the show. another ghost story that I have for you is that, again, I was with Mum, and we were actually in Oporto in Portugal. And, you know, I don't know about you when you're on holiday, but when we were on holiday, we go to all sorts of different and fascinating places. It was quite interesting to go and have a look around, you know, landmarks, historical monuments, that sort of thing. Been into all sorts of churches, places of worship, old buildings, that sort of thing. And we went into an old church in Oporto in Portugal. It's sort of northern Portugal, Oporto, if you wanted to get an idea of which bit of the country it is. And it was a beautiful summer's day. It was nice and hot. It was very sunny. I say it was beautiful. Mum, much more fairer skinned than me, didn't really appreciate the hot weather. So I was quite glad that we went into this cooler old church in Oporto. I think it was actually might have been the cathedral. Anyway, we went in and we knew that there was a lot of history to it. The minute we stepped over the threshold, I was spooked. And I'm not normally worried about things like this. As I say, I find spirits generally, as I said a bit earlier, quite calming, that as long as you acknowledge them, it's fine. And generally it's just, you know, chatting. It's a portal, as they suggest at Halloween, where the lines between the living and the dead are a bit more blurry. It's like there's an open portal. But this occasion, we went into this cathedral in Oporto. Bright hot day, stepped inside, absolutely freezing. And I thought, and you know, we're in summer clothing. And I thought, what on earth is going on? This is ridiculous. It's really cold. There's something that feels really off in here, like a bad vibe, really bad vibe. Like all of a sudden, all together, everything had crowded around me that was not good. If you think of the film Ghostbusters, where he says something like all the hate, all the evil, all the this, that, and the other, it was not quite as extreme as that, but it felt very oppressive. And I thought, oh, I don't like this at all. I fought the urge to immediately turn around and walk out again, because I thought we've come all this way, as in on holiday, and you want to make the most of seeing all the things that are there, where you're staying and what you're doing and stuff like this. So I thought, I'm going to walk round. I'll make myself walk round. I felt like I owed it to whatever was going on to say, no, I'm going to walk round. I'm going to come in. And I sort of went, oh, like that. I made a noise. So I was acknowledging my presence. Mum seemed to be totally nonplussed and started walking around quite slowly. Me, I walk round. I walk quite fast anyway. I went top speed all the way round, glancing at some of the plaques on the wall about who was buried in the crypt and outside, and various local celebrities and noblemen and things over the years. Shot round all the way to the gift shop, glanced in the gift shop very quickly, didn't really want to buy any tat, was still a bit kind of, whew, there's something in here that's not good. And I thought, but I've gone round, I've had a look, I've seen the inside, I've fought against it, and now I need to get outside again. I shot outside, and Mum was just coming into the gift shop as I was coming out. And I was like, I'll see you outside. It's fine. And we got outside. Well, I got outside, catching my breath and everything. And Mum comes on, she was ambling around, as I say, about 15 minutes later. And she said, okay, what was it? She immediately knew that that something in there had caught my vibe and that I didn't like it. And I said, I don't know. I said, it was something bad. Something bad happened in there. Was what I'd, you know, it calming down and looking and seeing. I said, something bad happened in there, not recently, but years and years ago, something terrible happened. And, you know, that's why I feel that I didn't want to stay in there. Not that anything would happen to me, but, you know, it was not a good place to be. Something terrible had happened in there. And she said, oh, yes, she said, it's got a lot of history, you know, various local religious groups like nuns and monks and things like that. And, you know, people being baptized and christened and all the rest of it. And then we asked at the hotel we were staying at, and we said, you know, we felt there was a really sort of a vibe around there. And actually people generally are quite, we've talked about it in one of the local bars as well, run by a Portuguese man who's very nice. And they said, oh yeah, he said, actually, you're not the first person to say that. There were forced baptisms during the time of some dictator or another about 500 years ago. And that was what it was, that had been a place where things have been forced upon an innocent population. So there you go. Feel the vibe. Make it a good vibe, and enjoy yourselves this Halloween. And apologies again for the slight technical issues. It seemed to have been mostly my end, but I'm glad that we got to hear from Tom from the Blue Cross, who are among many wonderful animal charities looking out for our moggies and our dogs and anything else we might have as a pet, because they are family, really. So Russ will be back on Friday. Friday is Halloween itself. Russ will be back. I'm sure Phil Dave will be as well, the king of the karats, and Chantel doing some entertainment news. You never know, there might be a spooky element to what she's been watching as well. Traitors is on tonight, speaking of spooky, and I will see you again very soon. Have a very good afternoon and happy Halloween. Take care.